Predecessor, former Pope Benedict XVI. Nearly 1 million Catholics crowded St. Peter's Square in jubilation. But
each of you whatever your capacity to care one another.
he angered Jews on his trip to the Holy Land by adding a visit to Israel's barrier wall, a gesture of solidarity with Palestinians. Francis reinforced a message of church unity when he canonized the more liberal Pope John XXIII along with the more conservative Pope John Paul II. And joining him at the altar, his predecessor, former Pope Benedict XVI. Nearly 1 million Catholics crowded St. Peter's Square in jubilation. But
each of you whatever your capacity to care one another. Be close to one another. Respect one another. I bless each one of you from my heart.
Pope Francis leaves a legacy that is not so much hammered into doctrine through things he wrote, but really that shines forth from his witness, from the life he lived, from the way he reached out to people, the way, the most important word in his theology, he encountered them, be with them, get down from the high places of the church and be with them. Now the question going forward is, the church does move in doctrine, hammered out in writing. What will come next?
All right, so many wondering that now. Senior national correspondent Terry Moran, thank you. And ABC's Marcus Moore was there on Easter Sunday when Pope Francis came out to speak at the Vatican. Marcus, how significant was that moment, considering we now know that was his last public appearance?
Yeah, that was a moving moment, Diane, for so many, not only the people who had gathered there in St. Peter's Square, but Catholics around the world who were watching the Easter Mass on Sunday, and because there had been so many questions about whether he would be well enough to participate in Holy Week, this because he had been in the hospital for 5 weeks in February and March, suffering from pneumonia in both of his lungs. And even after he was released from the hospital, the doctors made it very clear that he would have a long road to recovery, that this very serious illness oftentimes takes months to recover. So he had been resting, and in the midst of all of that, we didn't know what the plans were for the Pope during Holy Week. We know, though, however, Diane, that he did make a number of appearances, including that one where he appeared on the balcony and spoke very briefly before blessing the crowd, and then boarding the Pope Mobile and making his way through the streets around the Vatican, greeting the thousands who had gathered there from around the world. And we now know that was his last public appearance before he passed away this morning.
Marcus, what was that moment like? Not only the reaction from the crowd when they saw him, when he spoke, and then of course when he surprised everybody by coming out in the Pope Mobile, but then the conversations you were able to have with people afterward.
There was already, Diane, a lot of excitement and anticipation surrounding Easter Mass and whether the Pope would be there. And so I can tell you there was this sense of relief and really just pure joy at seeing the Pope, who clearly 88 years old, so clearly fragile and frail, but appeared to be in good spirits nonetheless. And you really felt that. And people were so appreciative and excited to see him. We were just feet away from the Pope Mobile as it passed by the middle of the piazza there. And, you know, I saw people sprinting to get close to the path. They had their cameras, they had flags, they were waving, they were smiling and waving their hands, and you really felt that energy there. And so then you juxtapose it to the news, the shocking news that we heard this morning, and just such a huge shift, right, in the mood there, but certainly still one of indeed reverence and appreciation for all that the Pope has done for the Catholic Church. This the feeling among the people there whom I've met, who were fans, so to speak, of the Pope and really loved the Pope. because of his humility and his work as the leader of the Catholic Church.
Marcus, what are you watching for next? Not only, obviously, there will be a conclave and a successor chosen, but also in the way the Vatican opts to honor this man with a funeral and a memorial worthy of a pope, but also a pope who really embraced humility.
Absolutely, yeah. They called him the People's Pope, and I would suspect that that is something that the Vatican will continue to carry on. We know that at some point the Pope will lie in state, and he will be there for people to see and for them to pay their respects. And it's in this time right now that the various cardinals who will participate in the forthcoming conclave, this is the moment where they are all making their way to the Vatican. Those who are able to travel and who are eligible to vote, they will be making their way there. And so after this week, after the next 5 to 7 days, we anticipate that the process to begin the conclave, that will begin. And how long that takes will be anyone's guess. It could be a very short process or it could be a long one. But Diane, I think the focus right now for many is really making sense of the news that we got this morning that was so shocking to people, and remembering Pope Francis for the man that he was and his dedication and devotion to raising awareness and highlighting and amplifying the plight of those who are less fortunate around the world and those who have been displaced from their homes because of conflict. And as you know, Diane, it seemed like almost every opportunity he had to speak or to write, that his message was one of tolerance and also calling for peace around the world.